All right, page 786. If a volcanic discharge did drift from Andromeda to Sweden, it came from a northern constellation to a northern part of this earth, as if to a part of this earth that is nearest to a northern constellation. But if Andromeda were trillions of miles away, no part of this earth could be appreciably nearer than any other part to the constellation. If repeating afterglows in Sweden were phenomena of repeating arrivals of dust from outer space, they so repeated in the sky of one part of this earth because this earth is stationary. I note that I have overlooked the new star of Cygnus late in the year of 1876. Perhaps it is because this star was discovered by a professional astronomer that I neglected it. However, I shall have material for some malicious comments. Upon the night of November 24th, 1876, Dr. Schmidt of the Athens Observatory saw in the constellation Cygnus a new star. It was about a third magnitude and increased to about a second. Over all the observatories of this earth, this new star was shining magnificently, but it was not until December 9th that any other astronomer saw it. It was seen in England upon the 9th because upon the 9th, news reached England of Dr. Schmidt's discovery. I note the matter of possible overclouding of the sky in all other parts of this earth at this time. I note that between the dates November 24th and December 9th, there were 8 favorable nights in England. It so happens that I have recorded of what one English astronomer was doing in this period. Upon the night of November 25th, he was looking up at the sky. Meteoric observations are conventionalities. New stars are unconventionalities. See Nature, December 21st, 1876. This night, this astronomer observed meteors. There was a volcanic eruption in the Philippines upon the 26th of November. About 2 weeks later, a red rain fell in Italy. There is considerable in this book that is in line with the teachings of the most primitive theology. We have noted how agreeable I am sometimes to the most Southern Methodists. It is that scientific orthodoxy of today has brutally or mechanically or unintelligently reacted sheerly against all beliefs of the preceding or theological orthodoxy and has reacted too far. All reactions react too far. Then a reaction against this reaction must of course favor or restore some of the beliefs of the earlier orthodoxy. Often before disasters upon this earth there have been appearances that were interpretable as warnings. But if a godness places kindly lights in the sky, also it is spreading upon the minds of this earth a darkness of scientists. This is about the beneficence of issuing warnings and also seeing to it that the warning shall not be heeded. This may not be idiocy, it may be divine plan, that surplus populations shall be murdered. In less pious terms, we may call this maintenance of equilibrium. If surplusages of people upon this earth should reduce, and if then it should, in the organic sense, becomes desirable that people in disaster zones should live longer or die more lingeringly, provided for them are phenomena of a study of warnings, a study that is now, or that has been, subject to inhibitions. August 31st, 1886. Just before the sun dropped behind the horizon, it was eclipsed by a mass of inky black clouds. People noticed this appearance. It was like the dense mountain-like cloud that appeared at Callao, Peru, before the earthquake of September 4th, 1868. But these people were in a North American city. Meteors were seen. They were like the fireballs that have shot from this earth's volcanoes. Luminous clouds, such as have been seen at times of this earth's eruptions, appeared and people watched them. There was no thought of danger. There was a glare, more meteors. The city of Charleston, South Carolina, was smashed. People running from their houses, telegraph poles falling around them. They were meshed in coils of wires. Street lamps and lights in houses waved above like lights of a fishing fleet that had cast out nets. It was a catch of bodies, but that was because minds had been meshed in the net of a cult woven out of the impudence of the de Belors and the silences of the Davisons, spread to this day upon every school of this earth. The ground went on quaking. Down from the unknown came, perhaps, a volcanic discharge upon this quaking ground. Whether it was volcanic dust or not, it is said in the New York World, September 4th, that volcanic dust was falling at Wilmington, North Carolina. September 5th, a severe shock at Charleston, and a few minutes later came a brilliant meteor which left a long train of fire. At the same time, 2 brilliant meteors were seen at Columbia, South Carolina. See almost any newspaper of the time. I happen to take from the London Times, September 7th. There was another discharge from the unknown, or a strange cloud appeared upon the 8th of September off the coast of South Carolina. The cloud hung heavy in the sky and was thought to be from burning grass on one of the islands. Charleston News and Courier, September 10th, that such was the explanation, but that no grass was known to be burning. If a procession starts at Washington Square, New York City, and if soldiers arrive in Harlem and then keep on arriving in Harlem, I explained that in spite of all the eccentricities of Harlem, Harlem is neither flying away from the procession nor turning on 125th Street for an axis. Meteors kept on coming to Charleston. They kept on arriving at this quaking part of this Earth's surface as if at a point on a stationary body. The most extraordinary display was upon the night of October 22nd. There was a severe quake at Charleston while these meteors were falling. About 50 appeared. About midnight, October 23rd and 24th, a meteor exploded over Atlanta, Georgia, casting a light so intense that small objects on the ground were visible. A large meteor at Charleston, night of October 24th. An extraordinary meteor at Charleston, night of the 28th, is described in the News and Courier of the 29th as a strange celestial visitor. It was only a coincidence. There is no conventional seismologist and there is no orthodox astronomer who says otherwise. In The Friend of India, June 22, 1897, is another record of some of the meteors that were seen in Charleston. That, at the time of the Great Quake, Professor Oswald saw meteor after meteor shoot from an apparent radiant near Leo. Carl McKinley, in his descriptive narrative of the earthquake of August 31, 1886, records a report from Cape Romaine Light Station upon an unusual fall of meteors during the night. Again, a volcanic discharge came to this point, or a fall of ashes was reported. In the News and Courier, November 20th, it is said, what do you say? It is said that about 10 days before, ashes had fallen from the sky at Summersville, South Carolina. It is said that the material was undoubtedly ashes. Then it is said that it had been discovered that upon the day of this occurrence, there had been an extensive forest fire near Summersville. Yeah. Monthly Weather Review, October and November 1886. Under forest and prairie fires, there is no mention of a forest fire, either small or extensive, in either North or South Carolina. Summerville, and not Charleston, was the center of the disturbances. Ashes came from somewhere exactly to this central point. In a study of recent earthquakes, Dr. Charles Davison gives 36 pages to an account of phenomena at Charleston. He studies neither meteors nor anything else that was seen in the sky. He studiously avoids all other occurrences upon this earth at this time, refines such a study to a finality of omissions, and the vacancy of the imbecile is the ideal of the student. I approve this as harmless. The other occurrences were enormous. Destruction in South Carolina was small compared with a catastrophe in Greece. Upon the day of the first slight shock at Charleston, there was a violent quake in Greece And at the same time, torrents poured from the sky in Turkey, carrying away houses and cattle and bridges. Thousands of houses collapsed and hundreds of persons perished. This day there was a shock at Srinagar, Kashmir, shocks in Italy and Malta, and increased activity of Vesuvius. Just such an inky cloud as was seen at Charleston was seen in the eastern Mediterranean at the time of the catastrophe in Greece, reported by the captain of the steamship La Valette. See Malta Standard, September 2nd. A mass of thick black smoke changing into a reddish color. The sea was perfectly calm at the time. In the sky of Greece, there was a glare like the light of a volcanic eruption. I confess to a childish liking for making little designs or arrangements of data myself, and every formal design depends upon blanks as much as upon occupied spaces. But my objection to such a pattern maker as Dr. Davison is to the preponderance of what he leaves out. In Dr. Davidson's 36 pages upon the lesser catastrophe at Charleston, he spins thin lines of argument in a pretty pattern of agreements around omissions. It is his convention that all earthquakes are of local subterranean origin. So he leaves out all appearances in the sky and mentions none of the other violences that disturbed a zone around this earth. It is a monstrous disproportion when a mind that should be designing embroidery takes catastrophes for the lines and blanks of its compositions. It is my expression that if a clipper of data should dislay his scissors, or should accidentally let in an account of one of the many localized repetitions of meteors, he would tell of an indication that this Earth is, or is almost, stationary. Night of the October 20th, meteors falling at Srinagar, Kashmir. There was an earthquake. Shocks and falls of meteors continued together. According to my searches in Indian newspaper, these repeating meteors were seen nowhere else. As to zone phenomena, I point out that there is a difference of only 1 degree of latitude between Charleston and Srinagar. For the data, see the Times of India, November 5th. If a string of meteors should be flying towards this earth, and if the first of them should fall to this earth at Srinagar, how is anybody going to think of the rest of them falling exactly here if this earth is speeding away from them? Sometimes I am almost inclined to have a little faith, of course not in general reasoning, but anyway in my own reasoning, and I go on to observe that a long string of meteors can be thought of as coming down to the one point where the first fell, if that point is not moving away from them. But I begin to suspect that the trouble with me is that I am simple-minded, and that mine enemies, whom I call conventionalists, are more subtle than I am and prefer their views because mine are so obvious. Of course, this earth is stationary in a surrounding of revolving stars so far away that an expedition could sail to them, but no dialectician of any fastidiousness would be attracted by a subject so easy to maintain. Back to the data. Geysers spouted from the ground at Charleston, and there were sulfurous emissions. The ground was incipiently volcanic and charged electrically. Meteors and smoky discharges and glares and falls of ashes and enormous pours of water as if from a volcano that was moving around a zone of this earth. And there is no knowing when in the year 1886 disturbances began in the constellation Andromeda. In the observatory 9-402, it is said that upon September 26th, a new star in the Andromeda Nebula had been reported by one astronomer, but that, according to another astronomer, there was no such new star. Astronomical Register 1886-269, that upon October 3rd, a new star in this nebula had been photographed. I think of our existence as a battery, an enormous battery, or in the cosmic sense, a little battery. So I think of volcanic regions, or incipiently volcanic regions, in a land of the stars and in a land of this earth as electrodes, which are mutually perturbative, and between which flow quantities of water and other volcanic discharges in electrolytic or electrically temportative occurrence. According to data, I think that some teleportations are instantaneous and that some are slow drifts. To illustrate what I mean by stimulation, most likely electric by interacting volcanoes and transportation or electric teleportation of matter between mutually effective volcanoes, I shall report a conversation which, unlike mere human dialogue, was seen as well as heard. Upon the evening of September 3rd, 1902, at Martinique, where the volcano Mount Pelée humps high, Professor Anglo Hilbrun, as he tells in his book Mont Pelée, saw southward at sea, electric flashes. They were in the direction of La Soufrière, the volcano upon the island of St. Vincent, 90 miles away. La Soufrière was flashing. Then Pelée answered. Pelée hugely answered in tones befitting greater magnitude. A dozen flickers in the southern sky, and then Pelée speaking up with a blinding electric opinion. The little female volcano, or anyway the volcano with the feminine name, nagged and was then answered with a roar. This bickering kept up a long time. About 5 o'clock morning of the 4th, there was another appearance upon the southern horizon. It was a dense bulk of smoke from La Soufrière. It drifted slowly. It went directly to Pelée and massed about Pelée. There's no use arguing with a little female volcano. She casts out obscurations, but there may be enormous use for this occurrence regarded as data.